We're back to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is podcast. I'm excited to welcome the host of the Love Is podcast, Kim Sorrelle. Kim, how are you? I know you're excited about our guest.
Doing great, Neil. I hope that you are too. And yes, Aaron, I am so excited that you are here with us today. Aaron Burns, who as a homeschool kid was making movies. Like, who gets to do that? Good for you, Aaron. And you've been involved with the Hendrick brothers, sort of their protege, which is so cool. You've done so many great things in film. Now you've got this great, hopeful, wonderful film coming out. You're directing after your Legacy Peaks did so well. I love that movie. Love Lucas Black. Great movie. You did such an incredible job. Producer, director, actor. I don't know what this man can't do. And he lives in Michigan, my home state. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be with you today, Kim.
Yeah, thanks. So you grew up homeschooling. Your parents gave you lots of freedom, obviously, to do cool things like build a log cabin in the backyard or whatever you decided to do. And
It's
then
true.
you're this 18-year-old kid and you start making movies, or even before that, starting to make movies. And then people actually bought them. Like, it's amazing. What you have done is absolutely amazing. And what you've done with movies, the hope that you bring is incredible. And I love that in this new movie, Birthright Outlaw, that the daughter's name is Hope. And so I'd love for you to talk about that a bit. Like, why is hope such a big theme for you and in this movie?
Yeah, well, Birthright Outlaw was such a fun movie to make because I mean everybody grew up watching westerns and loving the adventure and kind of the old timey-ness of it, but to get to tell a modern western, to make one today, and to get to weave in some of the themes and some of the twists that we love to have in our stories, was just such a great opportunity. And yeah, you mentioned I grew up traveling and adventuring with my family as a kid, and my mom and dad pouring into me and my siblings and my cousins and the projects we did together. Now I've got 4 kids and one on the way of our own, and we take them with us as we travel on our adventures now. So to get to go out to Tucson, Arizona, and to shoot this movie was just a joy. And yeah, that theme of hope, I think, is so important for us today, as the world we live in, we know is broken, and you can see it everywhere in the news headlines just this past week of the things that are going on in the Middle East and the politics at home. But that theme of hope tells us that this world is not our home, and that the pieces that you see around us, that there's a bigger story being told. And I think that was the case for our characters in the story of Birthright Outlaw. The Sarah Drew's character, it's a fictional story, but in our world, she grew up as the daughter of the most notorious outlaw in the West.
Right.
And she finds herself with child and says, there has to be something more. This can't be all there is to life. So she tries to put her past behind her. She tries to run and flee and bury that. And 15 years later, she's married to the small town preacher in this last chance Arizona town. And her daughter's about to grow up when the outlaws find her and uncover she's been hiding, and her whole world is now blown to bits. So that's kind of the story and the setting as we've set it up. So
Now, you know what, Aaron, I started thinking about this. Westerns are so popular. Did you see that as a thing? But adding the faith-based to it, that's really great, isn't it? Putting that all together, a family-friendly type of Western, especially, what is out there today. So you saw the popularity when you were thinking about this, right? Of how this will go really well on a platform.
Yeah, it's funny, when we
Great
first
content.
started developing it a few years ago, the Western hadn't taken off as much as they had. It was just when they were starting to come back. But it's great timing because everybody's looking for something to watch. For me, one of the motivations for us making these films is family movie night. So I've got our kids and we want to watch a movie every week together, and to have something that we would all enjoy and all benefit from and just have a great time. So that's what I'm looking for as we develop these projects.
Yeah, no kidding. And you're doing such a great job of it. And I have to say, as a grandmother, I so especially appreciate having family movie night with my grandkids and being able to have movies like this to watch, and cannot wait till this one comes out. It's going to be a great family night. And I love popcorn, so it works out really good. So with your kids, it's there's so many themes that run through this movie, because it's about marriage, right? It's about parenting. It's about co-parenting. It's about so many different things.
Mhm.
And really with kids, the marriage part of it is so important to keep your marriage alive and healthy. And that plays a big role in this, because they certainly could have gone in two different directions. And it's talk about a tough circumstance to stay through. They stick it out. And so how did that play into it all?
So that was really one of our core ideas when we went in to tell this story. We said we want to explore the theme of marriage and explore the theme of parenting with a father-daughter relationship and the husband-wife relationship, and to put them through a test and to tell a story that could take our audience on a journey that's similar. Now, again, I'll be honest here. I'm not an outlaw. I don't have that interesting of a past that I've been riding roughshod over the West. But we all bring into our marriages, we all bring into our families our own baggage and our own brokenness. And it's very easy when those things come together, say, let's just give up. This isn't worth it. Let's bail out. Or when you have conflicts in your parenting and challenges that arise, it's sometimes easier to quit. But if you've made that commitment to your spouse and you've been given that responsibility to lead your family and lead your children well, then that's your responsibility to stick with it and do whatever it takes. And that's what we see the character of that Lucas plays in this film as this husband and father who takes on that role of, this is not what I was expecting. This isn't what I had in mind, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to model God's unconditional love towards my wife and towards my daughter. And we see him going on that journey to do just that.
It's
Yeah,
powerful stuff. It's so powerful, and that coming up with that theme and putting it together. What's been the feedback that have been able to kind of screen it? What have they been saying? The people who have screened the film so far.
Well, what I love and what we inspire to do with our team is to make films that entertain. And so it's interesting that the word entertain means to hold one's attention. So you would entertain an idea, you'd entertain guests. And we talk about that as opposed to amuse. So amuse means amuse, the muse in your shoulder means not to think. So if we can have a film that will hold your attention and you'll take those thoughts and you'll be entertained through the process, but then you take those thoughts with you afterwards, there's a lot of questions that are raised in the film, some of which are answered, but many of which are still left for you to consider and think about as you go through. So it's an adventure, it's fun, it's a story that will hold your attention, but then to leave you something to go forward with afterwards. So it's a little bit more unusual of a film in our space, and people have really been enjoying that so far. And really it's coming out tomorrow, so it'll go out to wide audiences everywhere, and would love to hear what people think, would love to hear how they use this story and think about and wrestle with it in their lives.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure it's going to have great impact and you're going to get great reviews. I know that already. And you personally, you've acted in your own films, and then you produced, and you were so passionate. Like I listened to you talk about producing and the whole take something from concept and make it a reality, and how really the acting part of it is kind of a small part when in the overall scheme of things and the overall time of things, that it can be just a few weeks of actually shooting, but the film takes so much longer than that. And then now directing. So how is that different? The producing end and the directing end, is there one you like better than the other, or what is it? What's that change done for you?
So producing in the kind of classical definition is the person who's responsible to bring all of the pieces together to let the film happen, and you're shepherding it from the very first idea. I always say every movie, every project, everything that's ever created starts with what I call a wouldn't it be cool if, and we say, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we told a Western story that was adventuresome, was entertaining, that a family could watch together, and then it wrestled through these truths and it took you on this kind of a journey. So we have this idea, this concept, and as the producer, you get to shepherd that idea from the initial wouldn't it be cool with into the development of the story, the development of the script, and then budgeting and shooting locations and hiring your crew and putting it all together. And you pull all those pieces together, and then you set the table. And then the director is the one who takes all those pieces and carries that vision creatively through the shaping of that final film. And then as the director hands it off back to the producer, who helps facilitate it, the last two phases of release and marketing, distribution, and sharing it with your audience. So it's been fun. I've done a lot of the producing side and creative producing, where you're working with the ideas, you're helping to build all the pieces. But these last two, I've been the director on to actually get to execute the creative during production. And I think the relationships with your writer, I worked with Justin Strahan to write this screenplay, and my director of photography, Ryan Spicone, and then our cast. It was very, very rewarding to be able to see the ideas that we came up with come to life on screen. And I just remember moments. There's a scene in the movie where, again, not to give away too much, but Sarah Drew's character was this outlaw. And then now her husband, who's a preacher, the two of them together have to go rescue their daughter. And he says, "Teach me what I need to know." And so she says, "Okay, I'm going to teach you how to shoot." So they have a scene where they're learning to shoot the rifle and to prepare for their battle with the outlaw gang. And it just getting to work in those moments with them and talk about the nuance of the scene, and tell them, okay, as we're writing it, when you share this line with him, Sarah, you're thinking about your dad and all of the evil that he brought into your life to teach you how to be a bad guy. But you're teaching it to your husband, who is good, and he's going to use the skills that God gave you to rescue your daughter now. So you have all these complexities in the story, and you can make these really magical little moments that really cause you to think. So those are, just a small example of the fun of working with the director, working as a director with your cast, and then with the director of photography. You say, okay, let's capture, it's his line, but I want to be on her face as he says it, because we're going into her psyche and we're thinking about these things. Now, the audience, when you're watching, you just watch the scene, but you getting to pull out those nuances and shape and craft that story is the privilege of getting to work as the director.
What I think about is how you build those relationships between the two, right? How you played the role of producer, now you're the director. Do you have a different thought process when you're going to a producer because you've had that role before? Because not always directors and producers, some people just direct and never produce. Does that make it an easier relationship?
It does. Well, it's interesting in both ways, because as a producer, you're ultimately in charge of time and budget. So you've heard of the term showbiz. Hey, this is showbiz. Well, it's usually a lot more biz than show. So there's all of the budgeting and logistic time constraints that you constantly have. And on every film, you're often asking, how can we go faster? How can we go faster? Rather than, as the director, what I want to be asking all the time is, how can I do better?
Got it.
But you only once in a while you're allowed to ask that question. Most of the time it's, how can you go faster? Because we're shooting this whole movie in 22 days, 23 days. And everything has to be totally dialed in to make sure we can get all the shots that we need. So something that's great about my background with producing is I can say, all right, we can save time here. We can save money here. We don't need to see the inside of this house. We'll just stay on the porch.
Right.
We don't need to see the back of this set. We don't have to have her in the scene. We just film it this way. But then my director of photography or my cast would sometimes come to me and say, Aaron, you're producing now. Let them solve that problem. You have to be present with us here in this
exactly.
moment. So it's turning off different parts of your brain.
Definitely. It's available tomorrow, October 13th, Great American Pure Flix. And any place to find information on you, where can we go?
burnsandco.us is our production company website. But yeah,
right.
But check out Birthright Outlaw. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again. Appreciate it. All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is podcast, guys. Take care.